Good Sunday morning, Jacksonville. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. He's Dr. Yass, and he's going to give you the tools to live a pain-free life. There are 3 ways to get involved. Call us and talk to Dr. Yass. 904-641-1010. Give him your questions. He'll do his best to explain the Yass method and how it can help you. Text your question for Dr. Yass to the text line, brought to you by our good friends at Lifetime Enclosures, 904-641-1010. Watch us on the live stream on the 1010XL YouTube channel as well. Now, last week we went through the entire process of getting pain-free, from a call to the show to making an appointment and meeting Dr. Yass and using the method to eliminate your pain. Today, we're going to show you the value in the Yass method. For those who are concerned about the initial financial commitment, we're going to show you the value of the method compared to the money you will spend trying different ways to eliminate your pain when it's all right in front of you with the Yass method. Welcome, Dr. Yass. Great to see you. Please explain to the folks the value of the Yass method and where we're headed with today's show.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here on another Sunday morning with you and the audience. What I wanted to start today with was to discuss the full extent of way the way the Yass method will affect your life. For most people who are suffering with chronic pain, they're getting treatments. And those treatments are mostly designed to minimize symptoms, to try to limit their awareness of their pain, but it's really not getting to the cause. And what I wanted to discuss is the Yass method's unique ability to get to the cause and what exactly that means to the individual beyond just addressing the pain. So I want to talk about the different aspects of how the Yass method affects people's lives. So number one, emotional distress ends with a cause identified, and I am quite sure that this will hit home with you. So for the average person who's suffering with chronic pain, it starts off with pain. You've experienced that. But as time goes on, emotion begins to develop that is associated not with the pain, but the idea that maybe the pain will not be resolved and that you may be living with this for the rest of your life. So anxiety develops, stress develops, frustration, anger, and for many, many people, hopelessness begins to come into play. And what that does is it affects every aspect of your life. So we've talked about this, that when you had that year of dealing with Achilles tendon pain, even you talked about the fact that your ability to deal with the people in your life got more difficult. Your ability to do your job got difficult. Your desire to get out of bed got difficult. And so eventually the emotions took over the pain, and that basically became your life. And
No, I was just going to say this, but I'm sorry to interrupt you. It got to the point, and I know if you're driving around out there or if you're sitting at home and you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. It got to the point where I'm thinking, this is it. I'm just going to have to deal with this the rest of my life. There's no other way to look at it. So if I just look at it from that point of view, how can I change my life to deal with this pain every single day? And I remember a friend of mine saying, well, you are getting older. And then finally I said, no, I'm not accepting that anymore. I'm just not accepting the fact that, you're getting older and that means you're going to have more pain. No, it doesn't. No, right. It doesn't. And I found the Yass method. I used the Yass method. And again, I've said this over and over and over. Within 2 to 3 weeks, it was done. The first time I walked into the office, the very first time, I had a pain level of 9. I walked out with a pain level of 3. So the stress that was mental stress on my life, the physical stress is bad enough. The mental stress is so incredibly debilitating because you feel like there's no way out and there's no way to go forward. You're just going to have to accept it. And don't ever accept anything in your life. Never accept stuff.
So I could tell you that probably after the first or second treatment, Matt's entire personality changed. You could see this guy was stressed when he first came in, beyond just the pain, but his whole his persona was somewhat down. after the first or second session, you could see this guy had been lifted up. He was walking lighter. He was happier. We were laughing more when we were together. And so I'm telling you from a personal experience relating to him that there is this connection between the pain and your emotion, and eventually that emotion does overtake you. I just treated a guy who had pain at his elbow, his right elbow. Yes, he ended up with tennis elbow. And that pain got so bad, he couldn't use his right arm and actually had to become a left-handed person. That's how extreme this got. There was nothing he could do in his life anymore with his right arm. This guy had been broken. He came in, and I said to him, what if on that first session I resolve your pain? I prove to you that I have a method that could actually end your pain and give you the ability to use your right arm again. And the guy said, that would be a miracle. There's no way. So we started the process. I did the evaluation, figured out which muscles were involved. I did some massage, and I did exercise. And what we did was we had him hold a box of tools, which was the measure by which he had his pain. And after each exercise, I said, grab the box, grab the box. And by the last time he finished his last exercise, I literally said, how do you feel? And he said, no pain. After that, the guy said to me, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with this life. I'm not going to be a prisoner of my pain. I am not going to allow it to destroy my life and reduce what I can do. And he literally said, at the end of resolving my pain, I want a general conditioning program. I want my life back.
Right.
And that's what the Yass method does. It's beyond just the pain. It's about getting the mindset that says you can have control of this and you can do what you want in your life.
It's not, and I said it earlier, don't think you have to accept things that previously in your life you did not, like you would never accept. So there is a way out, and I keep saying this over and over and over every week. There is a way out, and it's a simple way out. You talked about the lunch, holding the pail
box.
full of tools. Yeah. Mine was a single leg stand. I could not stand on my leg by itself, single leg stand. I fell over every time as soon as I lifted my leg up. By the end of the first session, I could single leg stand for 20 seconds. And I know you're driving around out there, you're sitting at home, you're thinking, how could this be? It is. Believe me, it is. It's not difficult. They are easy exercises aimed at strengthening muscles that are in deficit. That's all it is. It's very, very simple.
Right. I agree. So the next point is that treatment ends cause. Therefore, treatment ends pain management. And this is to the point a particular client that I have wanted me to point out that for the average person, once they've got beyond their initial phase of treatment for their pain, many are moved on to a pain management type of situation. So they're getting epidural nerve blocks every 2 or 3 weeks or maybe a couple of months. Maybe they're on medication. Maybe they're getting epidural nerve blocks every 3 months. And the point is that mindset and that approach will never address the cause, resolve the cause, and end its need to elicit pain basically forever.
Right.
Right? This is all about temporary. And as long as you're going temporary goes on indefinitely. And so if you are willing to go for the Yass method, which does identify the cause, and in 98% of cases it's muscle, which allows you to resolve that cause in 2 to 3 weeks, a couple of treatments.
Say that again real quick. In 98% of your
cases
that you've looked at over 30 years.
30 years, multiple thousands of cases, I have found and proven that the cause was muscular. Even when structural abnormalities were identified on the MRI, it was muscular. We performed 3 to 4 exercises for these people, and they were pain-free and fully functional in weeks. And that is another point to make. We don't use pain as the measure of success. Pain is not a measure of success. Functionality is a measure of success. Can you do what you want when you want? That's how the Yass method measures success. So that's the special nature of this. You want to stop your cycle. You want to end this idea that, oh, my God, I got a cortisone shot. I've got some freedom of pain. When is it coming back? Establish cause, resolve cause. That's what the Yass method does. The next issue is time free to be active again. So there is a time factor in going to your doctors, in getting treatments, getting medications, all these types of things that are going on. That time could be spent with loved ones. That time could be spent doing the things you love to do. That person who wants to play golf, tennis, whatever. How about playing with your grandkids? How about going to church like Robert talked about? Well, if you've got all this time that you're allocating to getting your treatments and your life kind of evolves around it, you lose the ability to spend the time with the ones you love doing the things you love. And so that's a critical point to be made. Another one is kind of what we talked about. Results are immediate. I will almost guarantee if you come into my office for the first session, you will see, if I confirm the cause is muscular, you will have a substantial, if not complete, reduction in pain. Matt will talk about that's true.
Everyone we've had on the show says
right. John, who's going to be coming on, will say that's true. That's what happens. I know it sounds hard to believe, but it is true. That is the way this works. You will have an immediate improvement. The key here also is that if it's muscular, I'm going to teach you how to do the exercises. You're going to get some videos, and you're going to be taught how to do this on your own. So you get to control. It's an empowerment concept. You'll learn how to do this, and then you will be able to do this on your own and not only resolve your pain, but prevent it from reoccurring.
Okay. When we come back, that's a lot. That's a lot, but it's a lot to ingest. It's also very simple, though. It's very simple. It's a simple method with simple exercises. When we come back now, we're going to get a little bit further into the Yass method, the value of it. I'm going to explain how much I spent, okay, over the first year until I met Dr. Yass, trying to fix for lack of a better word, trying to fix my Achilles tendonitis. You're gonna hear this and you'll be shocked by this, okay? We'll also get John's testimony. We've got a lot to do here today. Again, if you want to get involved, call Dr. Yass, 904-641-1010. We'll be back on the other side. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour. He's Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. Before we get to our testimony, and John Mitchell, I want to explain to everybody how much money I spent prior to meeting you to try and resolve my pain. Started out with the walking boot, $159. Then a TENS machine, $109. Then lifts, $59. Then a heat and pressure boot, $89. Then a PRP shot, $150 copay. 12 PT sessions, $50 per session. $1,166.
Wow.
Is what I spent.
Wow.
And guess how much pain relief I got?
Zilch. Zero.
Zilch. Nada.
Right.
Literally nothing. The best pain relief I got was when I put a bag of ice on it because it numbed it.
Right.
All that stuff I bought, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, real quick, before we get to John and his testimony, explain the value in the method.
Right. So we talked about what the method does, but to get to the actual economics, we did, as we've discussed prior, say that once you get the Yass method and it does resolve the cause, which ends the need for that tissue to elicit any pain, you don't got to deal with that, which is to say any future costs associated with that pain is over. So as you mentioned, you had $1,100. I've had people who have spent $40,000, $50,000 on their. I mean, they've taken out loans to address this kind of thing because it's your life. You can't live if you can't resolve this issue.
Right.
So the money is extreme, but in terms of the cost for the Yass method, the typical person, and you described it yourself, typically comes 2 to 3 times. And at a cost of $200 per session, that is a total potential outlay of $600. Maximum. That's the average, and there may be someone who goes 1 or 2 times more, but that's, again, typically associated with someone who's had some failed surgeries, and it's added on another layer of issue. But the average person, 2 to 3 times, $200 per session, that's $600 total potential expenditure. For what? For what? To end your misery, to end the idea that this may never end, to be able to relate to your family members, your friends, your coworkers again, to have a sense that you could wake up in the morning and know the sun's going to shine and you could shine with it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Right?
Well,
that's
to roll
what
out
this
of bed
is about.
and stand up and not be in pain, it's priceless.
Exactly. How many people have I talked to that say they get out of bed at night or in the morning to go to the bathroom? They can't. They got to grab a cane, a walker, or they have to stand there for 5 minutes while that pain subtly resolves just to take their first step. All of that goes away. $200 per session. The typical bout of treatment is 2 to 3 sessions. The sessions, by the way, let's talk about economics, are an hour and a half long.
Right.
One-on-one. There is nobody else in my facility at the time. It's me and you. My entire attention is on your issue. We get an hour and a half, 90 minutes together to get this done. That's partly why the treatments are so effective, because there's plenty of time to perform the treatment.
Right. And it's one-on-one, and your lovely personality is what it is.
Right. Well, let's just say there's a bit of motivation going on and, a little, proving the point that it can be fixed.
All right. We're going to go to John now. John's got a testimony. Our weekly testimony is here. John, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like you guys just gave my testimony.
Good talking to you, John. First off,
likewise.
But by the way, how did you find out about me? Tell everybody that.
I actually found out. I was listening to the radio show and heard Matt and Leon talk about it. And I think as you guys describe, the cost and what you'll do to feel better and be pain free. It's as you mentioned, $200 a session, but it really is priceless. I mean, I think when you get to that point, it's you'd pay just about anything. And I think that's why a lot of people, go the route that they go, because they're just looking for answers.
Right. So just if we could just briefly talk about your pain, where it was, what you did to address it prior, and how did you respond to the Yass method?
Yeah, so I've played baseball most of my life, and then kind of transitioned, into adulthood, playing tennis and golf, and weekend warrior type stuff, and never really had any major injuries. And really about a year ago, I started the first time ever had some lower back pain, and it just got progressively worse to the point where I stopped playing any tennis, stopped working out, was having difficulty walking, and then you kind of start the process. I went to see the orthopedic. They evaluate you. Hey, here, go to do 4 or 5 weeks of physical therapy, and then we'll reevaluate. That happened. Things really didn't get any better. That transitioned into an MRI. I went to see a chiropractor during this as well. No relief from that. Got the MRI, came back, inflammation, do more physical therapy, did a cortisone shot, and eventually after about, 4 or 5 months of inactivity other than the physical therapy, pain shot, whatnot, it was all the way really until Christmas till I started feeling better, which I think, looking in hindsight now is pretty much just resting it, right? And to your guys' point, putting ice and heat and doing things like that. I started playing, got back into playing tennis and working out again, over Christmas. That lasted for about a month or two, and then the pain came back. And it was kind of during that time, I think, was when I heard, Matt, you describing Leon's experience and your experience on the radio. And I actually got up I remember it was a Friday morning, and I got up and it was so much pain just trying to get out of bed, just trying to get to the shower to get the heat on it to make it feel, some relief. And I got out of the shower and told my wife, I said, I'm trying something. I'm at that point. I got online. I booked an appointment. I don't know if I got a same day appointment. It may have been the next day, the next Monday or not. But I went in, saw you, and I think for a lot of people, a lot of people avoid this process and they just delay it because it's such a long process, right? To go through, making the appointment, just even getting in to see a doctor. And then, the multiple rounds of appointments that you have to go through before you even, feel like you get to a point where you have something explained to you, much less treatment. And I would say the day I came in to see you, my pain out of 10 was probably a 7 out of 10, progressively getting worse, on its way up. I mean, I was back having difficulty just even walking and getting out of bed. The very first session with you, it was 15 minutes of kind of Q&A, back and forth, trying to diagnose me. And then I think it was at that point in time you said, I already know what's wrong with you. I'll have you feeling better by the time we leave. And then, of course, then you took about 15 minutes to further explain it. And I was kind of like, all right, let's get to the making me feel better part. And I just had to be a little bit patient with that. But deep massage out, 30, 45 minutes. You left me with 4 exercises. We went through all of those, 3 reps of 10 each one. You even sent me videos. The videos have options of you can do them, with weights or on machines or with bands. And I would tell you at the end of that hour and a half session, the pain went from a 7 or an 8 down to about maybe a 2 to a 3, which was well worth $200. You told me you thought it was going to take maybe 3 sessions, but you hoped it wouldn't be any more than that. I think within the week I came back and saw you again, and we did the whole same routine again. By the time I left that one, it was probably a 1, and honestly, right now it's a 0. So I couldn't be any happier with the results. It was immediate. It was explained very well. It was, here's what I'm going to do. And here are some exercises to take with you that you do on your own. I don't know how it could be any more appealing than that. And so much so that, I've had people, I can't tell you how many people I've told about it, and up to and including people that have come to see you. And I've even personally guaranteed, I said, hey, go spend the $200. And if you don't see it, if you don't see the results, I will reimburse you the $200. Good friends of mine, I'm like, just go in and see them.
So, John, I want you to explain this, because I think people who are listening probably still don't understand. They probably hear exercise and they think, well, I'm 65 or I'm 75. I can't do exercises. Explain how simple these things truly are.
Oh, it's none of it is. I'm certainly not the model of health at 52 years old where I'm at. I like to think that I'm active and maybe used to be athletic, but getting in and working on machines again. Also up to and including. Here's how you do it with things that are as simple as a band and a door, an entryway to your house. Here's what you can do, and it's very simple movements, targeting the area that needs to be targeted, and it's and Dr. Yass walks you through every single one of them by the time you leave, and it's and if you ever have questions, you text them, you call them, and you get a response right away. Who does? What doctor is texting you personally, and then even you followed up with me afterwards? Hey, how's it going? Is it working? And whatnot. Did you get the videos? Yes. So it's very simple, and it's so simple. It's like you're mad. I'm mad that I waited 4 or 5 months to do that. And fortunately, for me, I've never, really had. I had, torn labrum, torn rotator cuff one time, and it's the only serious injury I've ever had, thankfully. And but I know there are people that go through a lifetime of this, and I just hope they give it a shot.
Well, I just wanted a couple of quick points. Number one, in terms of where your pain was, you were told it was your lower back, but what people have to understand is that the top of the pelvis delineates the lumbar region, your low back above it, and your gluteal region below it. When I said to you, can you point to where your pain is, you pointed to your gluteal region. So everything that was being done up to that point was not addressing the actual tissue in distress, eliciting your pain, because no one really looked at your symptoms, what the presentation was showing. So because I was able to do that, I knew it was really associated with hip dysfunction, and that allowed me to address the issues. And you responded very well to the exercises, as you talk about. I make sure you fully understood the detail of it, gave you videos to allow you to do on your own, and that's why you were able to take care of that within weeks. You had mentioned your shoulder. I thought it was actually cool. A few months later, you came back in for that shoulder because it started to bother you. You came a total of 1 time for that, and we ended that.
That's right. So playing tennis, and playing baseball my whole life, I'm right-handed. The actual labrum and rotator cuff injury I had was on my left arm, but it was similar feelings that I had before that from a soreness standpoint. I'd hit a serve, hit an overhead, throw a ball, things like that, and occasionally it would just be a little bit of a sharp pain, and not only with the lower back gluteal issue, but also then with the shoulder. I think what's so unique is, you know, as a patient, someone that's sitting there in pain, we hear you say, "Oh, I know what's going on with you," and you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I've heard that before." And then you come in, part of this method, you come in and you basically prove it to the patient, right? Okay, I mean, I'm right-handed, and we're sitting there doing exercises, or doing motions, and my left arm is stronger in certain motions than my right arm, which I would have told you there's no way in the world that would be the case. And you sit there and you prove it, and it's like, okay, all right, I get it. And you're very open and honest, right? When you get to the deep tissue massage, you're like, hey, this might hurt a little bit. and it does, but the relief from that, again, within 5 minutes is well worth that brief moment of pain. But you're open and honest with it. You explain it, you diagnose it. And it's very impressive. And again, if anything, if I'm anything, I'm mad I hadn't done it earlier.
I just want to make one point about that. So this, to me, is what this is all about for me. It's really not about treatment. It's about educating people, giving them the pathway to having the lives they choose. So, yes, I do explain the theoretical basis of the presentation of your symptoms. Then when I can see what the cause is, I go on to explain what that mechanism is that's not working properly. And then, to me, one of the home run aspects of this is where after I do the massage, your pain goes from a 9 or a 10 down to a 2 or a 3. I don't know what more you would need to show you that it is in fact muscular and that with the appropriate exercise, this could be ended. And that,
right,
to me, is the home run point of the first session. It's a sense that this guy knows what he's talking about. This is something that could be resolved, and it could be resolved in a couple of weeks. And that's where I hope the person leaves on that first session.
No doubt. Well, you convinced me.
And by the way, do you want to just mention that your wife also came, and we've been able to help her with her knees?
Absolutely. Yeah, and she's had, my wife played basketball in college. She's actually had 3 ACL surgeries, both knees replaced, played tennis. She transitioned into tennis as well after college. And she has so much, I think scar tissue issues and just repeat. I mean, she has trouble sleeping at night from a joint standpoint. She has trouble, getting up off the ground. And she's someone that, definitely, should be skeptical from the whole process of trying to see someone quickly and get immediate results, because she's been through it all in terms of, you can imagine with that many surgeries and the seriousness of those surgeries. And so, I finally convinced her. I mean, I think she saw, not only just listening to me, but I think just seeing me, and the changes in what I was able to do, and how quickly it worked for me. And she's been in a couple of times, and she was as big a skeptic as anybody, and she's felt relief from it already. And I know she needs to, kind of continue on. As you mentioned before, she's going to be that case of someone who has to come in more than 2 or 3 times just
right,
because of that amount of,
the post-surgical
history
situation
sure.
that happened. And I would just make one very quick point. She could not get down to the floor, and if she got on the floor, she had to pull herself up with her arms. After the first session, she was able to get up to off the floor without using her arms. It was absolutely amazing. Even I was overwhelmed by that response to the system. It was wonderful.
No, for sure. She kind of, just as a visual, she kind of looked like the Tin Man, right? Couldn't bend her things, getting up, and you're like, I mean, she's now 50 years old, and you're like, that former college athlete, that's frustrating for her, right? And you feel bad for her. So
yeah, it was great. I thank you for having her come in and giving me the chance to prove it, and it was just wonderful. And I appreciate both of you, and thanks for coming on the show and sharing the message. I really do appreciate it, John.
Thank you, John.
No problem.
I appreciate
it.
Have a good Sunday.
Thanks, guys. You
Bye-bye.
too.
That's the whole. I mean, John said, she's a former Division I athlete. She couldn't even get off the ground, and you feel so bad for her. Yeah, you feel bad for her. Imagine how bad she feels. Imagine the idea of, and John made a great point. I'm so mad at myself that I didn't do it sooner. And I felt the same way. I'm so mad at myself that I let it go on for a year before I did something like this.
Well, that's why we do the show,
right,
because we want people to have awareness of this, and we want people to know there is this pathway available.
All right, if you want, we'll have a time to answer a couple calls. So give us a call here, 904-641-1010, 904-641-1010. And if you can always reach Dr. Yass at 904-906-YASS. That's 904-906-YASS. Or go online, livewithoutpains.com. That's plural, livewithoutpains.com, and set up an appointment. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass, 1010XL. Okay, one segment to go here on the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. Mitchell, let's get into the hip hoedown.
So we talked to John about his pain, which he was told that was coming from his back, but it turned out to be the gluteal region, which is all associated with the hip. So today I wanted to try to guide some people to a little better understanding of which muscles could potentially be causing your pain in the hip and pain region. So we are going to begin the hip region hoedown.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. We're going to start talking about the hip region, and I want to give you some facts that you might not know. So number one, the hip region, first of all, is where the pelvis connects to the leg. Number two, it is the primary joint where weight bearing occurs. And this is really critical for people to understand. Every joint has a reason for being. So the knee is primarily locomotion. Okay? So if you're going to move, you're going to go upstairs, downstairs, sit down. That's occurring at the knee. The foot and ankle is for allowing you to address different contours in the surface that you're standing on. Well, the hip is where you take your torso, your head, your torso, your arms, and your pelvis and connect it into the leg so it could either be supported or transported, okay? So that's the purpose of the hip joint. It's the most stable joint. It's the deepest socket, and if you look at it, if you got a chance to hit a glossary and look at the hip joint, you'll see that the head of the thigh bone is angled up, and that's what the pelvis is sitting on. So it's specifically designed for weight bearing and to allow for balance and stability. That's the other part of this. So if you're taking one foot off the floor, the ability to stabilize yourself so that you don't fall, which is the basis of being a human being, bipedal, occurs at the hip joint. So that's also what happens there. Now, because of the fact that it's related to balance and stability and also weight bearing, there are a hell of a lot of muscles in the area. And I always talk to my friend John about this because he is stunned when he actually finally looked at a glossary and we started analyzing all the potential muscles that are in the area. And I want people to understand that the hip joint is the ball and socket, but around it, on the side of the pelvis and in the back of the pelvis, is a tremendous number of muscles. And I want to go through a bunch of them so you could understand what is potentially causing your pain. One point I would make about the typical diagnosis: osteoarthritis, bone on bone, bursitis, and labral tears all would create pain at the hip joint itself. So if you're not having pain at the hip joint, you have to know where that is. And I'm the kind of guy who could tell you that. If you're having pain outside that hip joint, those diagnoses can't be accurate. So if we just talk about in the front of the hip joint, there is a muscle part of your quadricep, front thigh, that attaches to the pelvis right near it. There's a muscle that attaches and runs into the groin, the sartorius muscle. That could be affected by hip dysfunction. There's on the side of your leg, the iliotibial band. In the butt, where John had his pain, the piriformis muscle can cause pain. And finally, the hamstring could cause pain. So any one of these muscles, anywhere around the hip joint and gluteal region, could be caused by pain associated with weakness of the muscles. So those areas relate to hip dysfunction.
So, Mitchell, real quick, explain this. If you have hip pain, it could very easily be that your hamstring has shortened up and needs to be lengthened.
So the point is that for the average person, the majority of people don't have pain at the hip joint. They're told that it's at the hip joint, but it's not the hip joint. It's in the area. And what I'm trying to convey to people is if it's not in the hip joint, it's not coming from the hip joint. It's muscle. And you need someone who's willing to differentiate that for you. And that comes with understanding symptom. And the secondary aspect you want to recognize is if there is a muscular cause, you're going to see a change in your posture. You're going to see a change in your ability to perform your activities. And your pain will be associated with activity and decreases with rest. That is the biggest point I could make to you. So as soon as you have pain in the hip region or gluteal region, please do not immediately assume it is structure. It is muscular in 98% of cases.
And then call 904-906-YASS and tell Dr. Yass, I've got pain, I need help. Because it's as simple as that. Or you go online at livewithoutpains.com. Type it in. You type in, I want to make an appointment. My name is Joe Jones. I need to make an appointment. Done. Mitchell Yass gets it. You have an appointment. Everything's good. You will be on your way to a pain-free life. Simple as that.
Pain-free living. That's what we want for you.
All right. That was quick. Another great show here for you. We'll be back next week for another pain-free hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. Join us next week, everyone.